Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Buddy Study Group, and we are delighted to have Peter Stinson of Twilight Wish here with us. If you saw my agenda, you might have gotten a bit of an idea of what Twilight Wish does, but if it's a fair comparison, I would say think of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, but for the senior population. So, really helping to make the dreams of seniors come true one person at a time. I think I'm gonna save you any other description and let Peter get right into it, talk about what Twilight Wish is all about and how if you think what they're doing is great, how you can get involved. So Peter, thank you very much. I know it's been a long time coming that we have you on a study group, so we really appreciate the time and you being here with us today.
Thanks, Jason, and thank you all for having me. I'm Pete Stinson, the Executive Director for Twilight Wish Foundation. Like Jason mentioned, we are a national organization that grants wishes and dreams to deserving elderly, connecting generations. So I do have a little presentation, but just to give you an idea of what we do before I get into the slideshow and show you some pictures, about half of our wishes are simple or basic needs. That can be food, clothing, mobility equipment, furniture, hearing aids, wheelchair ramps. The main crux of the simple or basic needs wishes is folks want to age in place. That's really what I think most of those wishes boil down to. And then you have the celebrating a life or living life to the fullest. And those tend to be more experience type wishes. Might be a family reunion, military reunion, might be a sporting event, animal related wish, could be a hot air balloon ride. Um, we even do group wishes as well, entertainment and whatnot in facilities. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll kind of just go through a quick PowerPoint so you can see some pictures of what we do and get an idea of where we are and talk about how you can get involved as well. Just give me one sec. I'll pop this up. I will start the show. All right, so I already kind of talked about what Twilight Wish is. You can see our logo there. And again, part of our mission is to connect generations. So that's an important component because everybody who's involved with a Twilight Wish is positively affected, whether that be their family members, staff, myself included, and volunteers as well. Um, we are, again, I'll talk about where we're located. We do grant wishes across the country, regardless of where we have chapters. Um, but we are now 23 years old, and we have just surpassed the wish number 7,000 point. To give you an idea of the growth, 2 years ago, when we celebrated our 20th anniversary, we granted wish number 5,000. So we have done 1,000 wishes in each of the last 2 years. Prior to that, we were in the 2 to 300 range per year. So astronomical growth, whether that's due to awareness, aging population, could be any number of things. I'll just touch briefly on our founder, Cass Forkin. She's going to be moving to emeritus status shortly here. Um, March 2022, she noticed some ladies at a diner scraping together coins to pay. It was elderly, and basically, she paid, didn't want to be known, and they said, "We didn't think people like you existed anymore." And she realized at that point that this was a population that was deserving, but really being ignored, and that was her inspiration for starting Twilight Wish. We talked about our mission, our vision, which I'm sure everybody here on this call would agree with, is to make the world a nicer place to age, one Twilight Wish at a time. So, I talked about sporting event wishes. There's from many years ago, for any of you California natives, there's California native Chase Utley who played on the Phillies for a while. Some ladies getting a chance to meet him, second base at the Phillies for a long time. And then in the other upper left of the screen, you see John John. He's unfortunately passed away, but he was a weatherman in the Coast Guard and always watched the gentleman in the center with the tie, his weather broadcast, ABC in Philadelphia every day. One day, Adam Joseph was not on the weather. Where's Adam? What's he doing? And that's when the wish of, well, I'd love to go down and meet him. I'd love to see a broadcast live. So that was the wish. We got John John down to the studios. He got to see a live broadcast and also shared his love of weather with Adam Joseph. So a couple of years ago, we had Adam come back and actually was a guest speaker at our event. John had since passed away. And what Adam basically said was, I don't know why he wanted to meet me. I'm just a weatherman. This guy is a hero. He's a Coast Guard hero. It was my honor to meet him and talked about what the wish meant to him as the weatherman to have that, to be part of the wish. We talked about intergenerational celebrations, and Adam just, it was really beautiful what he had to say taking part in a wish granting. So here's some examples of wishes. We talked about when our first wish. I should update that again. I'm needing to update this so quickly because we're granting so many wishes. So our first wish was granted 2004, and we've now surpassed the 7,000 mark for wishes. Qualifications for our wish. So you can see them all written out here. They're on our website as well. 65 and older or a resident of an elder care facility, a legal U.S. citizen, low income, demonstrating a history of giving back. And they do have to have the cognitive, emotional, physical ability to receive the wish. If any of these are outside the boundaries, we do look at wishes that maybe the folks are above that income requirement, or maybe they're on hospice but they're 64. It all comes before a wish committee where we have an opportunity to review wishes, and we're always trying to find a way to get to yes. When we talk about history of giving back, we are not a veterans organization, but just by default, about a third of the wishes we grant are for veterans. And if you think about it, those generations of veterans, think Vietnam, Korea, and the few World War II veterans that we have left, particularly those Vietnam veterans, just were not honored. They were not respected. This is an opportunity for us to do just that by granting a special wish for them. And sometimes they're not all that big of wishes. So we talked about some of the wishes, the differentiating part of celebrating a life, which tend to be 1% of our wishes. Think a 100th birthday party. That's really our quintessential celebrating a life wish. They're for 90 and older or hospice patients, but probably our most popular celebrating a life wish are special 100th birthday parties. We did one over the fall of last year. It was in the Philadelphia area. A gentleman was a World War II veteran, turning 100, and he wanted an Italian-themed lunch at the senior center. So that included, obviously, food. He had a Frank Sinatra impersonator. And, I had not met the wish recipient prior to him coming to the senior center. Like, gosh, he's 100. He's got the music. He's supposed to be dancing. How's he going to do? I've never seen somebody dance so well. He had better moves than I did. He had more energy than I did. He danced half the time, 100 years old, celebrating his life. So we talked about how we, nominate. You can go to our website and fill it out. I'll go back. We also will manually mail out applications. A lot of seniors that we work with are just not computer savvy. So the three things that we need are the application. Again, we'd mail that out, or you could fill it out online. We need proof of income, and we need proof of residency. If they're a veteran, we need their DD-214, which is their service record. So we talked a little bit about some of these simple needs wishes. Hearing aids, that's huge. Wheelchair ramps, lift chairs, they're big. They're a big wish for folks to stay in their homes. As we kind of go through and look at these wishes, all different types, keep in mind that our average wish cost is about $1,100. That's kind of the average. Some are dramatically more. Hearing aids, that could be a $4,000 to $5,000 wish or more. Wheelchair ramps, that's a $5,000 to $7,000 wish. Lift chairs you can kind of do for 700. There's some wishes that I'll talk about. If you're kind of connecting the dots, what I mean by that is folks are donating their goods or services or transportation or tickets or what have you, that may not cost a monetary amount, but they also involve a little bit of legwork. So here's a living life to the fullest wish. We just had May Cryer at our Week of Wishes event. We granted her wish in 2015. May is now 99 years young. She is an original Rosie the Riveter, back from the World War II era. And her wish in 2015 was to go to a Rosie the Riveter reunion. So we granted that wish. And at the time, it was kind of brought to our founders' attention that, the Rosies weren't honored in any way. So after the wish was granted, we made a push to kind of have a special day through this country, and it did pass through Congress. And now the Rosies were honored. And as of last April, April of 2024, May Cryer received the Congressional Gold Medal on behalf of the Rosies. All started with her wish, and it just kind of went from there. What an honor! And our founder Cass was in D.C. to see her receive the Congressional Gold Medal. Really, really unique honor stemming from a wish. Here's another living life to the fullest wish. So we do get a few of these folks wanting to return to their jobs, right? It might be a teacher. In this case, it was a police officer. This is Detective Al Vasso. I did have the privilege of meeting him. I was not part of his wish, but he did pass away since I'd met him. He was shot in the line of duty multiple times, I think 3 times. Kind of crazy. His wish was to go back to what was called the Roundhouse. I don't think it is anymore, but at the period of time, it was the headquarters for the Philadelphia Police. You see him there with the guy in the white suit. That is at the time the police commissioner for Philadelphia. Police commissioner asked, "Would you like to have your job back?" His reply, "Oh hell no." That was his reply. But he did enjoy the day. They had literally a full police escort for those of you East Coasters down I-95, which is the main highway here, to get him there. So it was really unique all the way around. And here's a classic celebrating life wish. 100th birthday, a hot air balloon ride. We talked about veterans' wishes not needing to be that overly complicated. Here's a veteran's wish for somebody who wanted a flagpole on the front lawn, right? How cool is that? Not a real crazy wish. Just wanted to have the flag, Old Glory, on the front lawn. We made that wish happen for Gus. And here's another living life to the fullest wish. This is Lizzie. You might think, oh, she's into arts and crafts. That's neat. And that's true. But her wish was actually, because she was quite the artist, to have one of her pieces painted on a building in Philadelphia. So there it is. There's a mural painted on the side of a building in Philly. That was one of her wishes, and that'll be there in perpetuity. Really cool. And we also talked about group wishes. So here's God rest his soul, but there was a guy named Jerry Blavitt. He was known as the Geeter with the Heater. And there he is performing at a facility for a group wish. He was kind of big on the music scene many, many years ago. I want to say the 50s or 60s. So obviously it was that generation's music. He had a great performance that day. So here's my first wish. For just a little, as a personal remark, I'm going on almost 4 years with Twilight Wish. And prior, I'd worked for a veterans organization for about a decade. And this was probably 2012, 2013. So well before I was involved as the executive director of Twilight Wish. This is Jim Hall. And I had a board member in the veteran org that I was working with that, ran Marine reunions. And he had called me one day and said, "Hey, Pete, Jim's it's got Jim Hall. He's one of our guys, 6th Marine Division, Island Hoppers in the Pacific." So if you hear 6th Marine Division, they were only World War II. He's coming to our reunion. It's going to be his last one, thanks to Twilight Wish. Can you go down and meet him at the train station, Pete? I'll mail you a flag. And that was my first experience. That was my first wish many, many years ago. I never forgot it. My grandfather was a World War II vet, so it meant a lot. So he was going by train to Oregon. He went from Philadelphia to Oregon by train and is quoted as saying that it was 2 wishes in one. He always wanted to, see the country by train. Actually, I think we have an interview. I'm going to try to play it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we're going to try.
I don't think we're getting any sound.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if
I
I
I
can.
think I think you have to like reshare, and when you go to share the screen, it'll say like share desktop audio. Maybe if we have some time, we can
Yeah.
wrap back around and show
Okay.
it.
No worries. Yep.
I'd love to see that.
Here's some quotes just of gratitude for folks who had their wishes granted. Um, again, I think some of these, like maybe to us, it may not be something we would wish for, but to anybody that they've been waiting for something for a while or to do something, and they're getting up there in their years. it's really special to them, any type of wish that's granted. So, of course, as a nonprofit, we could always use support partnerships. Um, so I do want to touch on that. We're a 501(c)(3), so we're a charity. We always rely on the support of the community, individuals, companies, foundations, local, regional, national. And as I kind of mentioned, our wish totals are just absolutely exponentially growing. So we could use support in any locations, or even if you just want to personally send in, $50, that's appreciated. In-kind contributions. So when we talk about like sporting events, people donate tickets. We did a wish up in Connecticut where somebody who's 104 years young in a facility wanted to hold and pet a penguin. So we called the local aquarium in Mystic, and they said, "Hey, listen, we'll do this. It's going to cost $3,000 to bring the penguin out." And we explained we were a charity, and they said, "Okay, we'll do it for free." That's an in-kind contribution, right? We would have given them a write-off for their 3 grand that they would have normally charged in order to do that. Airline mileage, we do some travel wishes. I mentioned the family reunions, purpose-driven trips. We do a fair number of those, gift cards, planned giving, and employer matching gift programs. Here are our chapters. I will note that volunteerism is always appreciated. And so I'm going to embarrass somebody on the call, Patty Goldfarb,
Do it.
our North Jersey chapter director. She's got a wonderful team, and it's been doing great things. Patty, did you want to touch on, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Put her
maybe
on the
one of the
spot.
wishes you've done. Yeah, I'm putting her on the spot. One of the wishes you had done, or how you've enjoyed, your experience so far as we're kind of getting the chapter moving, with the team you have there.
Sure. I have a great team. I have to admit that because they do most of the work. But we had one wish that was really meaningful. We had a couple, they were both wheelchair bound, and the husband really liked the group The Rascals. Does everybody remember The Rascals? I didn't, but evidently they're pretty well known. They
Right.
wanted to see a concert. Somebody on my team called the Rascals manager. They got invited to Atlantic City to a show and dinner with the entire band. I managed to speak to the Department of Transportation up here in New Jersey. They were going to get us a vehicle to take them both down there because they were wheelchair bound. Unfortunately, before this could happen, the husband got sick and he couldn't travel. So the Rascals turned around and decided to make a video for them. They were so thrilled, I can't tell you. I think we even got to put it in the papers up here, Peter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so too.
yeah, it was great.
But just really, really special wishes, and we're so happy Patty's part of our team. And I got to give a shout out to the Buddy Inns team. Wonderful Mark Glickman is on our board of directors, so you all know Mark, and I'll give that as a shout out as well.
He's on a
Um,
plane. He wishes he was here.
yeah, I think he's traveling, right? He's on the
Yep.
road this week. Yep. So our staff, we are a small but mighty team. So here we are. Only two of us are full time. The rest are part time. And don't forget to check us out on social media. So if you're like, hey, want to see some more, great pictures or wish stories, Facebook. I think it's called X now. We still have the old Twitter logo. Instagram. Check out some of the great wish stories. And Patty mentioned a concert wish. I'll highlight one we did from the fall. A lady in a facility in Western North Carolina, so very rural North Carolina, legally blind. Huge Donny Osmond fan. Huge Donny Osmond fan. So Donny Osmond has a permanent residency um, at the in Las Vegas. So we're going to plan to get her to this concert. About 6 months of planning. Some of these travel wishes are. And a week before, I guess Donnie's people found out the situation, that she was coming, and he agreed to meet with her. So we have video footage. It's not in this slideshow of Donnie and her singing together, and it was just so beautiful. He gave her a hug. I mean, this meant the world to her. Some of these wishes come together last minute. There's sometimes, can't always grant, like, I don't have, Bruce Springsteen or whoever on speed dial, or Donny Osmond for that matter, but sometimes you can kind of guarantee, hey, we'll get you to the concert, but then these other parts come together at the last minute. And it's just really beautiful, some of the wishes. So there's a lot of stories to check out on social media. I could literally sit here and tell you stories all day, but there's great pictures and some video there. Um, I'm going to stop the share and put this out to anybody who's listening. Anybody who has questions, thoughts. Um, Again, feel free to check out our website, twilightwish.org. We'd love to have you involved in some way, shape, or form. We're really trying to grow our national presence, and we're trying to grow the partnerships that we have to meet our huge demand for wishes. So, anybody want to chime in or questions or thoughts? Go ahead, Gretchen.
Hi. I just wanted to sort of expand on what you were talking about as far as partnerships. I think this is a great opportunity for each of you um, to partner with Twilight Wish on a fundraising effort. Make them your part of your sort of regular communication efforts because it aligns so beautifully with long-term care planning. And so, I know I have them in my, I have their link in my signature line on my emails. And they're in our portal, but you're going to be hearing more about them or seeing them more in upcoming campaigns. So we're going to be messaging more to Twilight Wish so that it is in like a fundraising capacity. We want to get more money to them so that they can fulfill more wishes. And then that's a good thing for all of us. So I highly encourage you guys to think sort of creatively about how you could, help them fundraise. Do a small start with a small campaign on your own, and you know set a goal and then start communicating that message for Twilight Wish. I just think it's a great organization. And, with a mother in assisted living, I see a lot of people in that world that, they don't have a lot of family, they don't have a lot of money, and, this organization is doing some just fantastic stuff. And I didn't know Patty was involved in it. So
Me
that
either.
was good to find out. Way to go, Patty.
You're on mute, Patty.
Yeah,
Thank you, Gretchen.
that's how
Yeah,
Mark
thanks.
found out about Twilight Wish.
Oh, I did not know that. So
Yeah.
learn
Well,
something
we owe
new.
you one.
Learn something new in all these calls.
Yeah, so happy to take any questions you have for Pete as well. I see that we do have a question in the chat from Carly, just asking to review the income requirement and maybe just a review of just requirements to qualify for a wish. And I know you have some flexibility there to a degree, but just maybe if you could show the slide one more time about where you start. And when you start to share, try to do, there may be an option for share desktop audio or application audio, so you can show that video if you'd like.
Okay, I see. Oh, share sound. Yep. Yep, perfect. You're right. I'm going to try to share it with the audio this time. So I will say that there is some flexibility there. What we've been doing, and I'll be the first to say that sometimes with partnerships with companies, if they're going to say, hey, we'll go, we'll donate X number of dollars, and then the agreement is we'll do X number of wishes, with that. If it's facilities that they might exceed our income requirement, we do have flexibility. So I would say a partnership would be one way to kind of look at that ahead of time. In terms of the income requirement, I'll pull the slide up again. Um, let's see here. Current slide. It's technically 200% below poverty level income. So I think it's $30,000 right now. That's the technical requirement. But again, a lot of these, if there's a compelling reason or a really unique wish story, I always say when in doubt, submit it. Let's talk about it. What's the compelling reason? Let's get it to wish committee and get the wish committee to bounce around what we can do. Wish committee meets monthly. It is a group of staff, volunteers, like chapter directors, board members, and we get, basically, I hate to say it's all the hard wishes, but it is because for the most part, if they meet all these requirements, if a chapter has the funding and it's under $2,500, the wish is automatically granted. So the wish committee really is only reviewing ones that are maybe outside the boundaries, but worth, doing. Well, what's the reason? You know what I mean? Maybe it's for a corporate partner or someone like that. I'm going to try to go to the video. Does that answer your question, by the way? I can't see the chat, but
Yes.
yes. Okay. Okay. I'll try this one last time to see if we can
Sure.
get a testimonial. Yep. If not, we'll just try it another day or something.
I had made up my mind I was going to go somehow or other, and of course the foundation came along, and in a very, very short time, I couldn't believe it. Michelle contacted me, and she said, "I don't want to give away any secrets, but she said I think things look pretty good for you." And so, as it turned out, why they went extremely well, and of course they're funding the entire cost of this trip, which is I'm humbled by it. I don't feel deserving of it.
I think I'm not sure. This is probably we won't play the long one, but there is a long interview with him about his service and why this meant a lot to him to go. Um, and you probably can't necessarily tell from the photos, but he's in a wheelchair. Maybe you kind of can if you look. You can see his wheelchair. The reason he's in a wheelchair is because um, he was trying to save one of his buddies, and he took a Japanese sniper to the pelvis when he was 18 or 19, and he had never walked. So this really did mean a lot to him to go see his buddies. I mean, anybody who serves, particularly combat veterans, that is his brotherhood. So this was a truly, and I think even again for me personally, it meant a lot to be involved with this wish, and how humbled I am now to be, the director of Twilight Wish and leading what we're doing. And so when Gretchen was kind of mentioning, hey, partnerships and funding, like we want to grant more of these wishes. That's what we're asking you for. Not necessarily veterans. We love to do veterans wishes, but you all work with seniors or you're active in your communities. How can we get the word out in your communities? How can we get more? Charities are simple, concepts. We need more resources and we need more great wish stories. That's really what it is. How can we help more people exponentially? We've already quadrupled the number of wishes. Can we quadruple it again? So I just put that out there kind of as a little challenge to what Gretchen was saying, that, to think about what that might look like, or folks that that in your neck of the woods, or the seniors you work with. That I will say this, I worked for a veteran organization for a decade. There's a lot of veterans causes, and rightfully so. There are not many causes that do what we do. This is a very niche nonprofit. So, we appreciate any help in your assistance in helping us to grant that many more wishes. Best way I can say it.
Well, it's definitely niche, but it's a huge, who you serve is a huge demographic, just huge. So yeah, so I think actually I did have a question, Peter. Is there any plan to expand more chapters?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll tell you, the number one thing that we need for chapters are good directors. It's good people who want to grab the bull by the horns and be the leader in their area. The rest of the stuff obviously is important, because then that chapter director helps with funding,
Mhm.
building a volunteer team, finding and granting great wishes. but having that person be our lead, and Patty can tell you, it's not easy. I will say that it's not easy. I'm not going to say that. But Patty started with a team. That is one thing I recommend. You don't have to start with a team, but I think that helps to have a team of different skill sets. Um, I think it's easy for us to look at the map and go, "Oh yeah, we'd love to be in the big cities." It doesn't matter if you're in a big city. I mean, we had our chapter director in Hartford, Connecticut. I didn't necessarily, if you look at a map, think that was strategic, and she's kind of, lit the world on fire. So it doesn't matter where you are. It's just, are you willing to help out, and we can kind of guide you and lead you. And it is truly the classic snowball rolling down the hill that kind of, once you get a couple things under your belt, wishes or a fundraiser. Patty's got we're looking at a fundraiser in New Jersey. We've been talking to a lot of folks. Patty's a world-class networker. I got to give her that. Just kudos all across the board. But that matters. We're connecting with folks. We're trying to create a buzz. And Patty's in a tough market. Everybody is competing for noise in that New York City metro market. That is probably one of the toughest to get attention. So sometimes even the smaller towns are easier because everybody knows everybody, right? Everybody knows somebody's story who hasn't been told. That's really kind of what we're doing if you think about it. We're granting their wish, but we're telling these unique stories. Like you just kind of heard from Jim, and we have that other video. I don't want to bore you for the next half hour, but his story is unique, and that's really what it is. We're telling folks stories too in some cases. So
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I want to hear a little bit more about the wishes you grant with regard to aging in place, because I think, on paper, you could call it a simple wish, but I think it's also a super, super important one to be able to grant people, especially if they are in, some sort of facility or looking at a facility setting if they don't have some help being able to age in place. So can you talk a little bit into how those wishes kind of come about and what's done and how you maybe connect to local resources to make that happen?
sure. So a lot of our chapters connect to either local area agency on aging, or they give presentations at living facilities. Some cases it is rather simple. Lift chairs, handlebar in the shower, gift cards for food or clothing. Um, we've done some that were a little more emotionally jarring, like when somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I've been sleeping on an air mattress for 20 years and it popped. Can you
Whew.
help me?" Um, yeah, we obviously can give you a mattress. That's easy. I can do a mattress, no problem. And we have unfortunately had a few of those come in, right? You think about, like, gosh, I can't sleep on an air mattress. I'm a fairly younger guy, right? Like my back gets all crickety out of shape after a night or two. 20 years, and these people are not in particularly great shape. Sometimes, Jason, too, it's just, hey, I need an electric scooter. Um, the wheelchair ramps keep folks in their homes, or be able to get them out of their homes, quite frankly.
Right.
In some cases, we do not do like home repairs, just small modifications. So, hey, you need an air conditioning unit in your window, or that handlebar in your shower. Those are kind of the things we've done. We'll kind of help with those types of things. But there are a fair number of, we've given like bed sets, hearing aids. These are literally, we call them simple needs. They're not always inexpensive. I mean, hearing aids or wheelchair ramps tend to be quite pricey, to be honest. We don't do a ton of them. Um, and we've even done some of these types of wishes in facilities if folks need like a piece of furniture here or there. Um, so that you're right. It's certainly like a lot of those that we call them simple needs, but there's quality of life. If
Right.
you can't, if you don't have a place to sleep, if you can't hear,
The
quality of
capacity to
life.
grant the wish may be simple, but the value derived from it is far from it, right? Those are really nice to be able to hear about. And the reason I bring that up is because we had an environmental gerontologist who attends a lot of our study groups actually, who gave a presentation on aging in place and what it really means and how our current built environment is not necessarily conducive to aging in place in a lot of cases, but small modifications can go such a large way to allowing people independence without worry. I think those are important things to be able to highlight. And just the organization in general, I think beyond just those simple modifications. But you hear stories about, I've been sleeping on an air mattress, or my wish is really just to be reunited with some members of my family. Those are the kind of things that I think are really important to think about as far as the senior psyche and feeling left behind and helping to alleviate that in any way, shape, or form, I think is a huge piece of what you guys do that just can't be undercounted, you know?
No, and I agree. And Jason, the reality is those wishes get the least publicity, but probably are the most impactful.
Sure.
When you think about, because we do get some wishes, and as you get into like maybe if you know people in senior living or you get into corporate partnerships, they do want a marketing value, and that may not all be simple needs, but simple needs are extremely important. Um, Same token, we do need to have corporate partners so we can offer some sort of marketing value proposition
Right.
because some of our wishes do get on the news, for really unique stories and like, wow, somebody's going here, somebody's doing this or whatever. And um, a company can attach their name to that, and there's serious good, a value to that. It's better than normal marketing dollars to say, hey, we're partnering with
100%.
Twilight Wish, and so just keep all those things in mind. But I think that to your point, Jason, too, those simple needs wishes, the news may not come out every time you do something like that, but wow. And the other thing I'll also touch on too, kind of to your point, is a lot of in some wish cases we don't publicize because folks don't want to ask for help. So like we're not going to call the news out for somebody whose air mattress popped, right? But internally, wow, like it's kind of a reality check for even us. Like, wow, like you take for granted the bed you're sleeping on at night. And that's what we can do, right? It's not gonna, be flashy. It's not, but wow, what kind of quality of life if you don't even have a place to sleep? And that's what happened. And that's the ask on the table. And it's so impactful.
100%. And I'm sure for organizations like yours, obviously funds go a long way, but just introductions, I'm sure can also go a very long way. So I encourage those of you, even if you feel like you're not in a financial place to be able to help out, or you've got a small contribution, but maybe you've got an introduction that can really help open the door for a lot of wishes. I know many of you out there are long-term care professionals who work with tangential professionals to what we do. So an introduction to somebody who might be able to help with an aging in place initiative, or just a strategic introduction to a company that can help provide resources, maybe in exchange for a little bit of exposure, right? There's no harm in exposure for an organization like this, on behalf of your business. So, yeah, definitely, I think any little inch of spreading the word and getting more exposure out there for what this cause does, like Peter said, the exponential growth will continue.
I'll just say this because you all, know Mark and Patty. That Patty was the reason we connected with Mark, and Mark has been kind of, hey, let's check out a few conferences, and so we've been able to do that. And like we're now the two conferences that you all may know, literally chose us as the charity ILTCI and Medicarians have put their
Yep.
name to and that was Mark because Patty said, "Hey, you got to meet Mark, right?"
Yeah.
And that was kind of Mark's thinking in terms of why don't we kind of go this direction because this is good exposure and good networking, and it's paid huge dividends. So I got to give a shout out to Gretchen, Jason, Mark, the whole team, and Patty for the introduction. But it goes to Jason's point that you don't know who you're going to meet or who's going to be inspired by that. And it is about kind of like, how can we meet folks to grow the organization, to grow the number of great wishes we grant? Because this population is huge and we're barely scratching the surface. I mean, right? How many people are turning 65 every day now? How many people are in need of our services? We're not going to be able to keep up, but I think we should try.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's about as good as you can put it. Does anybody else have any other questions, comments? Gretchen did link the website for Twilight Wish so that you can read up on all the wishes there. I'll have it in the recording. You may have saw it in the agenda. But Pete, I think it was long overdue to have you on for a study group, and I hope we can get you in front of our audience many more times to be able to even just discuss how things are going over time. I really am excited to continue to follow this story. It's only been on my radar for a little bit of time, but I'm really excited to watch where it goes.
Thank you. And
Gretchen's
thanks for
got
having me
your
on today. Yes, I
yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah, and Gretchen's got your community partners section up in the portal, so you can read up all about him there too. Um, but I think that'll do it, unless Pete, you got anything else you want to leave everyone with?
That's it. Thank you all for your time today, and don't hesitate to reach out. I guess I should add, I can put it in the chat section, just my contact info. It's on the website,
Yeah,
but I'm going to put it on here anyway, just so if anybody wants to reach out, they have my email and my cell phone number and can reach out at any point.
Fantastic.
great deal. We super appreciate what you do, Peter. Thank you again for taking the time to educate everybody on what you got going on. Everybody be well, and we will talk to you this time next week. Have a
Yay.
good one.
Bye.
Take
Bye. Thanks.